You see that? Live on the mic, 'cause we're live now.
I don't know about that. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'm Michelle Forsyth, co-president, and where is my other half? Our co-president, Sarah Allen. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Glen Ellyn, we'd like to welcome you here this evening for our community meeting on the state of the village. The purpose of the League of Women Voters is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation in government. The League works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League does not support or oppose any political party or any candidate. I'm going to go through a few housekeeping items. We are recording this community meeting. Then we will end up posting it on the League website. And are we going to be posting a video on the village website as well? And so you'll be able to go back and listen again on the wonderful information we're going to be hearing tonight. And then with regard to questions, we ask that all questions be respectful and relevant to the topics and the information that's presented tonight. It is, of course, going to be about the village of Glen Ellyn, so nothing outside of going for the village of Glen Ellyn. So those of you who are in person, we ask that the questions are going to be at the end of the presentation, not throughout the course of the presentation. And we ask that you raise your hand, and our village manager or president will call on you to answer. And those of you on Zoom, if you could look at the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen and click on that. And anytime during the course of the event, you can send your question and type in your question, and it will be at the appropriate time read by our VP of Communications, Aaron Daly. So I am honored this evening to present our speakers tonight, our village president, Mark Senak, and he served for 10 years already with the village, starting as commissioner and then moved on to the village board. And now he's our president. And we're so happy to have him here tonight. And we also have the village manager, Mark Franz. And you're going to be here for 12 years this year. So you've seen a lot of things happening in this village over 12 years. So it's a lot of experience. And so I'm not going to take any more time. I would like to turn it over the podium to, I'm going to say, the Mark and Mark show.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. It's a great opportunity for us to really get to talk to you, one-on-one, and not have to sit behind the dais and give you 3 minutes to tell us everything that you want to know. It's sort of interesting. When I did this last year, it was kind of curious for me because people say, so, come and tell us about the state of the village. And I often think it ought to be reversed, right? You should be up here telling us about the state of the village because you know better than we do what the state of the village is and what we should be doing. And so when I was asked to do this, I thought to myself, well, how do you kind of determine what the state of the village is? And, I and some of my predecessors would tell you about, the amount of development that we're doing, or what our bond rating is, or what the reserve levels are, all of which are an appropriate sort of measure of the state of the village. But for me, I thought to myself, well, how do I really convey the state of the village to the people who are the residents? And for me, one of the most important parts about the state of the village is the spirit of the village, the spirit of the people who live here. And do we have a common spirit? Are we unified? Are we passionate? Do we care about where we live? And by that measure, I started to kind of look around and say, well, how do I kind of measure that? How would I determine kind of what the heart and soul of the village is? Because, you're going to hear a little bit later, we can build all the development we want. We can pave all the streets we want. We can do all of that stuff. But unless we have that common spirit, that common unity, togetherness, okay, unless we're headed in the same direction, none of that's going to make any difference about what the state of the village is. So I started to think about, well, okay, so how do I kind of measure the state of the village if I look at the spirit of the village? And look, it starts very much at the top with me. I have to be the leader of the village, and I love what I do. I absolutely enjoy being the village president. I am honored to have the opportunity to be the village president. I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity. I am very committed. I try to work very hard at this. And so if you looked at the state of the village, or the spirit of the village, based on the village president, I want you to know the state of the village is strong. But I'm not the only one. And there's no way I can do it on my own. Right beside me are my village trustees. And I could, if you haven't had a chance to watch the village board meetings, you really should do so, because I could not be more proud to serve on the board with my fellow trustees. There is no doubt that we engage in some spirited debate. We don't all agree about it. But we engage in that debate in a very civil, respectful, and collegial way. While we may disagree, we don't vilify the other side. We don't think of them as their opinion being any less than ours. We talk through it. We come to a consensus. We're willing to compromise, and we try to put your interests ahead of our individual interests. So if you looked at the state of the village based on the village board, I can tell you the state of the village is strong. But that's not where it stops. If we start to expand that circle out a little bit, you'll start to see, and I see some of them in the audience today, we have commissioners who serve on the village commissions. And each of those commissions, I call them the eyes and the ears of the village board, because they do the work that the village board simply does not have the time to do. So the environmental commission, as an example, provides advice to us on environmental issues in the village. Are we doing the things that our residents want to, make our community environmentally sound? And you'll see some of the people up on the different commissions up on the board. What's interesting about this one is, how many do we have? 80 some? 90. Over 90 different people in our village volunteer their time to come and help the village serve the residents. That's amazing. Because they, like the village board, do that for nothing. There's no compensation for them. There's no rewards for them. They do it out of the goodness of their heart. They do it because they have a common spirit with the village residents and the other commission members. And they do this to make the village a better place. So if you looked at the spirit of the village through the commissions and the commissioners, spirit of the village, the state of the village is strong. But it doesn't stop there. If we widen that circle a little bit, you'll start to see that there's even more people who do this, and they do it again out of the goodness of their heart. They volunteer, and they do it because they love the village. And several of them are sitting right back in the corner here. Volunteer fire company. We're one of few communities. How many? 2 in Illinois? 2 in the Chicago area that have a volunteer fire company. Now, that's amazing in and of itself to me. But They have been out trying to recruit people to actually continue to do this on a volunteer basis. And let me just say, through their efforts, the amount of money that we save, that you save, is amazing. You can pick a number somewhere between $3 and $5 million. And that is a significant amount that we would have to add to the budget, that we would have to get from you to provide fire service, but we don't have to because they do it. So let's look at the fire company. They are a volunteer unit. And I often think, well, how many people are really willing to do that? Give up their time, give up their, energy, devote their energy. They just had a recruiting drive to try to get people to, continue to be part of the membership. How many?
I had 24 in the last 12 months.
That's amazing. Right? So when you look at the volunteer, the fire company, the spirit of our village is strong. But it doesn't stop there. It continues to go on and on. You look at our the school districts, the park districts, the library. Many of those positions are staffed, those boards are staffed by people who, again, volunteer to do this. They don't ask for anything, they give everything. Our village board, what was interesting, I found in the last election, is that 2 of our village trustees wanted to do it again. They ran for re-election. And they were re-elected. After 4 years, you might think that they would have had enough. Not at all. Not only did they run for re-election, but the Civic Betterment Party, we had over 10 applicants to be trustees. And just let me say that the League of Women Voters does not run the election. The Civic Betterment Party runs the election. So we're clear on that. Again, just an amazing demonstration of the spirit of our village. The commissions, we added 2 new commissions, community relations, architectural appearance. Almost immediately, we had more applications to be members of those commissions than we had positions on the commissions. So all I can tell you is we'll talk about some of the other stuff, the development and the fiscal responsibility and all of that. But for me, when I look at Glen Ellyn and I see the spirit of our community, I see a community that is devoted to serving its residents. I see the community that wants to do better, make it better for not only us now, but for the future generations. And if we use that as the measure of the state of this village, the state of this village is strong. So Manager Franz is going to give you a little bit more information.
Thank you, President Senak, and of course, jump in here as we go through this presentation.
I will.
Just trying to give a little overview of what's happening and kind of what the parties are going to be for the next 12 months. So a little bit of background on census data, just to capture kind of who we are as Glen Ellyn. This information came out from the 2020 census, but it came out last year, a little bit delayed because of the pandemic. So just a good snapshot of our demographics.
And let me just go back one.
Sure.
These are all great, right? Here's the one I want you to look at. 5.8% of the people in our village live in poverty, below the poverty line. Want to talk about spirit? Let's talk about the food pantry. What they do there, the people that they serve there. It's an amazing demonstration of those who have been given much, really giving much back to the people who aren't as fortunate. So again, just another example of the volunteerism in the spirit of Glen Ellyn.
Our strategic plan, we have identified 5 strategic priorities listed here. And this is a plan that spans from 2020 to now 2024. We're extending our strategic plan. Financial sustainability, just a little snapshot of our budget was approved at the end of the year. Very much an opportunity to enhancing our public safety, both in the volunteer fire company, our EMS services. We do have we contract out for EMS services, and we added a supervisor shift last year to enhance that service. And in the police department, we completed a staffing study about 1.5 years ago, and have added 5 police officers in our new commander rank to strengthen our public safety kind of across the board. Technology updates, we continue to try to embrace technology. we're doing a community survey this year, so you'll be seeing that later in the summer, spring and summer, to get some input. We do it every 5 years, so that's incorporated in the budget. And some other highlights. We've been a IGFOA budget award winner for the last 12 years. So a very sustained budget. We're a AAA bond rated community. We take a lot of pride in our overall finances. This is one of President Senak's favorite
Yeah,
slides.
I tried to get t-shirts made up of this from here, but it's really just to illustrate, oddly enough, what a great job our staff does. And so, again, when I talk about like my ability or the board's ability or the commission's abilities to do a good job, to a large degree, that's because we have a spectacular staff. And you can see the village's share of your dollar is relatively low. That is just a credit to Manager Franz and the people that work with him on keeping the services high, but doing that by keeping the costs down. And look, I'm just going to tell you something. This guy is special. You really are. You know, what he does. What he does for you behind the scenes is amazing. And, you know, I never realized it. And it's one of the benefits of being the village president is I get to see what he does to make sure that this village continues to be strong financially, but also to serve the residents and really people who aren't even part of the village, who happen to come here. So our village staff is one of the strengths of our village, and we should just be very appreciative. But you go on.
Thank you, President Senak. I've got to say that it's not me, it's the team, and we've got a great group of department heads and just a great staff overall. So real proud of our team. And let's talk about our team. Workforce and operations, just a few things to highlight. We talked about the fire company a little bit already. We did make a kind of important shift, updated our agreement with the fire company, and Chris Clark, who's been the fire chief, volunteer fire chief for 7 years, is now a full-time chief, being able to dedicate even more time and energy to oversee the operations, take on the EMS oversight, which I think is really important, and we're really happy to have him more officially on board.
So Chris, why don't you stand up so everybody knows who they're talking.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chris, for being here.
Just want to add one thing to this, as I understand it. First of all, the fire company does a great job, no doubt about it. Just today, we've reached an agreement with the police department to extend the contract for our union police officers for 4 years. That was a product of, again, Manager Franz and Chief Norton working in concert to try to provide, to really stay ahead of the need in DuPage County for increased police and security in the neighborhoods and in the village. So again, just an example of what a great team we have here in the village and how that benefits the residents. Am I doing this too much?
I think it's okay. So just a few kind of highlights on the workforce development up front. But been a challenging year. The last year, we're not alone. A lot of municipalities, a lot of businesses in general have gone through quite a bit of turnover through the Great Resignation, and we were no different. We've had a lot of turnover, but again, opportunity to bring in some really qualified professionals, and we've got a kind of a new team, and we're on the same page and moving forward. So excited about that. Development, just a few highlights. One is our website has a myriad of information that you can find on any project that we've got going on. So just wanting highlight that to make sure that folks are keeping track, checking it regularly. You can sign up for alerts on a particular project in your neighborhood or one that you're interested in. So we want to keep everyone as informed as possible. So we've made some real strides in that department recently.
Give me a little bit on Apex. About what's happening with Apex.
Sure. Yeah, Apex is a project that is about, I think, about 40% leased up. We're still looking at some tenants for the first floor. The parking garage is something that the village will be taking back from the developer when it's completed. We did have an issue about a month ago now, I think, with some design flaw in the first floor. So we're addressing that through a third party that's doing some inspections, and we'll be asking the developer to make some changes that he's responsible for, and they accept that. So we're working on a few loose ends, but the project is for all intents and purposes complete. now they're going to be focused on leasing up and filling the tenant space. So that project is nearing completion. The other project of note is the Chesney site. That project was approved a few years ago. They were ready to kind of start early last year, and because of the economy and inflation, they had to kind of value engineer and make some modifications. The village board approved 2 amendments to the agreement and some changes to the design. Nothing too concrete. It's still going to be very much what you see here that was approved originally, but they have gotten their building permit earlier this year, and they're set to start construction sometime in March. I had a neighborhood meeting last week, maybe some of you were there, to kind of kick it off, but it's a $35 million project, 86 units, rental units, and Avere's the project next to the library. That's more higher end, a lot of 3 bedrooms in there. It's 48 units, I think. Apex is somewhere in between. They've got some 3 bedrooms, but then they've got some 1 and 2 bedrooms as well. And Glenwood Station is mostly 1 and 2, and about 60% of it is workforce housing. So all 3 projects are kind of bringing a different thing to the market, and we're excited about that. So excited to see that project move forward. They're hoping to complete construction in December of 2024.
I was just waiting for you to take a breath.
Okay, that was all sense.
I just want to comment on those 3 developments. You know, one of the things that we talk a lot about is how you can maintain the vitality of the downtown. And obviously that is, we want to continue to have businesses, the existing businesses prosper, and we want to attract new businesses into the spaces that we have. You talk to the developers and they will tell you one of the things they look at is density, population density in the downtown. Do we have a dense enough downtown in terms of population to attract businesses who want to come here? The one that is at the top of that list is a downtown grocery store. And so to have a downtown grocery store, for that to happen, developers, people who are running those, want to make sure we have enough density in our downtown to support that effort. But it's a 2-edged sword, right? Too much density creates gridlock in the downtown. Too much density stresses the infrastructure in the downtown. So what we've been trying to do at the board level and with the staff is really have that discussion as to what's the proper level of density. We understand that we need to increase the density, but we also don't want to increase it so much because you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So we're at about 250 new units in the downtown. You know, we're going to kind of see how the downtown and how the village absorbs that development. And then we're going to decide whether it's time to go and look for more development. But we're not going to just develop every piece of downtown that we have to residential development until we're sure that we have the proper balance between residential development, and Manager Franz will talk a little bit more about green space.
Yes. One other development project of note, a lot of attention over the last years. The village board encouraged development of the hotel site for probably the last 10 years. I think everyone realizes that property was in decline, and we really were trying to get a redevelopment to happen through market conditions. It didn't come to fruition, so the village board took the unique step in some cases of purchasing the property and making sure that development happened in a way that improved the corridor and kind of got rid of an eyesore that was dragging down the commercial district. So we bought the property for about $2.85 million. We hired a consulting group to run through and guide us through a engagement period with the public, identify 5 different potential development concepts. Went to the Plan Commission for review, and then we put those plans together and sent an RFP to the development community. Got 8 different proposals. Actually, it's a little bit more than 8 because a couple provided multiple proposals. We're in the process, staff and the consultants and our broker. I'm sorry, I missed one step. We did a design charrette at Glenside School with a number of folks, stakeholders, and then we did an RFP, and now we're in the process of interviewing the developers and making sure we understand what the concepts are before we talk through with the board a direction, negotiate a potential purchase and sale agreement, and make a decision. So a long process, but a good process. Really trying to get as much public input as possible throughout, and we're excited to get something positive going on that site.
Okay, you took another breath.
Okay,
I want everybody to understand how unique this approach really was. We have not done this in this village up to this time, meaning the village is not actively engaged in development in the way that we are now. Usually what we would do is we're just wait for the developers to come and tell us what they wanted to build in the village. You know, that had some success, but as manager Franz pointed out, this site did not draw much attention. And there was a problem there, and we all knew it, and Police Chief Norton will tell you about it if you ask him. So we got a little bit more proactive than we normally would be. When we saw that opportunity, we decided it's time for us to try a different model of development. Rather than being passive and waiting for developers to come and tell us, we decided, you know what, we're going to go out, we're going to aggregate the land. We're going to go out with an RFP and tell the developers what we would like to see in our village. And then we're going to see how they respond. And we couldn't be happier, which is, as Manager Franz pointed out, they've responded by sending us a variety of proposals for quite a different, a broad spectrum of development on that site. We've been going through this process, and as Manager Franz points out, we're going to take our time and try to get it right. So bear with us, come and tell us what you think should go on out there, and stay tuned, because pretty soon we're going to make a decision.
thank you. Shifting gears, just a few other projects of note. The US Bank site in downtown on Duane Street, it's actually got a Forest Avenue address, but this was a property that's been vacant for a number of years. A developer was interested in the property and decided not to move forward. So the village, against seeing an opportunity and wanting to work with our intergovernmental partner, the Park District, purchased the property. We're in the process of hiring a design team, finalizing some agreements with the Park District to come up with a concept of how to develop that site. And the goal is to create a open space and event space in the downtown to service the businesses and draw people downtown to create a little economic engine. So I'll show you this. This is very conceptual. We put this together with the help of a consultant that just shows a little bit of what could be incorporated into a site like this. So this is Duane Street. This is the train station over here. So potential on stage or pavilion of some kind, an open area, some seating area incorporated with trees, small park, bathrooms, some open space here for maybe food trucks or something like that. And then an improved Forest Avenue in conjunction with the streetscape project that we'll talk about in a minute, are some of the ideas and concepts we came up with very preliminarily. We want to open up to the public and get more ideas and get feedback as we go forward. Sorry.
So just what's unique about this is I'm very excited about this because, again, we're trying to create some balance in our downtown. We're not going to just build on every square foot we have in our downtown. We're going to reserve some of it for open space so the residents can enjoy the downtown. But what's truly unique about this project is the partnership between the village and the Park District. It's just one illustration of how we have continued to reach out to, our other governmental partners and try to partner with them for the betterment of the community. If the Park District tried to do this on their own, or if the village tried to do this on their own, it would be a real financial challenge for us. But when we partner together, then we have the opportunity to do something very unique in our downtown. And this is just one illustration of the partnerships that we have created with the other governmental entities. As an example, with COD, we just finished a 2-year arts initiative that resulted in the downtown murals in the pedestrian walkway from the garage to the main street. And we just dedicated the tunnel, the Grove, which was another very interesting project because it was a joint venture between the village, the college, and the JCS fund of the DuPage Foundation. So you had private investment, and then you had 2 governmental entities coming together to create really what I think is a much better underpass than what it was when we started. So
That's slide 69, so he's really jumping. A couple other projects, we are finalizing our comprehensive plan, kind of our blueprint and guide for future development throughout the community. You've probably heard me speak about that in the past. We've been at this for about 4 years. We are finally bringing that to fruition. We are completing a housing study. We believe it's important to identify where we may have some housing gaps. And we are creating a steering committee. I think some of you are going to participate on the steering committee. Another example of volunteerism. So they're going to help provide some feedback. We've got a survey that's out on the street. So I encourage you to share that news with anyone who's interested in completing a housing survey. We're going to promote that with all of our boards and commissions and our non-for-profits to help make sure we reach those that are a little harder to reach. It's going to be available in Spanish. So we're excited about getting that survey out and getting some results back and pulling some data in and identifying where we may have gaps. And then the board can identify, some ideas of how to address those gaps. So that's a long-term project, but we're making some good progress. We're going to update our zoning code over the next year and a half. We are hoping to automate our building permit process, do some software upgrades. We're just picking that up. Yeah, we are going to do it. Yeah, we're going to. That's right. I don't know what I was thinking. And then we're going to continue to promote our TIF districts. And I was going to go into a little bit on the TIF districts. Anything else you want to add to that slide?
Not on TIF.
Okay.
I know the limitations.
All right, so TIF district. Sorry, this is a little what's the word? Professorial. I don't mean it to be, but was asked to give a little bit of a kind of a TIF 101. So happy to do it, and of course ask questions on this at the end too. So the village has 2 TIF districts. One that encompasses almost the entire downtown, and another smaller one on Roosevelt Road that covers the hotel property and a little bit on the north side of the street, and then covers where Panera and CVS are. So it's a little kind of odd shaped, but we created that in 2012 in the downtown TIF. I'm sorry, 2013, and the downtown TIF in 2012. But tax increment financing is probably the most popular and most utilized economic development tool for local governments to help encourage development in a depressed or dilapidated area. So it's a planning and financial tool that has been very successful in terms of seeing development and investment. The key elements is you have to adopt a plan. You have to make sure you're following the state statutes. The TIF lasts for 23 years. And what you do is you establish a base EAV. So we'll give you an example of that, but you kind of freeze the taxes, and then any increment that grows from that, it goes into the TIF and then can be used in that district. So you can take the increased revenue, if you're lucky enough to get increased revenue, and put it back into the district. So okay, I was going to do that. So again, public investment leads to private investment, increased property values, then there's increment, and it gets back into the district. So it's a way to create some economic development benefits without burdening the entire community that the TIF resides in. Okay, this is the slide that I think is helpful to kind of explain that. So the base EAV, equalized assessed value, is established, and then again, as it grows, this amount of money can then be put back in to encourage more private growth. And then when the TIF ends, all the taxing bodies get the benefits of whatever the growth is, and the community is stronger for it. So it's a limited tool because it only lasts for 23 years, but it's a great way to again encourage a public investment that then leads to private investment. And there's a lot of success in that. So a little financial example of that is just this demonstration shows that the $200,000 of increment is the difference between the taxes. And again, as long as you're using it on eligible costs, either public or private eligible costs, the area that the TIF is in benefits, and ideally the whole community benefits. So that's
Just one question.
Sure.
How long are we into our TIF?
So it was downtown was 2011. So 23 years, it's about 2034. And the Roosevelt Road is expires in 2036, I believe. So if you can't extend it, it's a little, much more difficult to do that these days, but, you can extend it for 13 years, if it's necessary. We don't anticipate it will be necessary. A little bit on infrastructure, and we're doing a lot of different things in the downtown. I'll spare you a little video, but it is available. We sent it on our e-news, just showing kind of the progression of our first phase of the streetscape project, which was pretty apparent this past year. We couldn't really hide that project. But it turned out we finished. We're very proud to say that it was on time and on budget. Wrapped up in November. We do have an area on Hillside we got to go back to, as we are burying some ComEd lines to really kind of enhance the entranceway into the downtown on Hillside in Maine. And then we're going to kick off the second phase this year north of the tracks. And this is a little pictorial of what that will look like. And here's a little snapshot of what the next couple phases are. So next year we're bidding out both phases 2 and 3. We're only planning to do phase 2 next year, but we're hoping to get some economies of scale. And we're going to do Main Street, a fair amount of Pennsylvania from Prospect to Maine, and then a little bit of Crescent all next year on phase 2, and then the area around the Chesney and a little area towards Western, and then this last block of Pennsylvania would be phase 3 in 2024, and then the most complicated is the area near the train station, and we'll talk a little bit about the train station pedestrian tunnel. That'll be phase 4. Not sure of the timing yet. We're trying to sync it up with the pedestrian tunnel project. Which leads me to this slide. So I've certainly talked about this before. The village board, even a few boards now have been very supportive of us seeking outside funding to make a pedestrian tunnel right at Forest, adjacent to the train station, and build a new train station to really enhance commuter safety and pedestrian safety, and really just connect the north and south of the downtown together. We've got more parking south of the tracks, and I think this pedestrian tunnel will open up a lot of opportunities to utilize that parking more effectively. It'll tie into the new park that hopefully is coming together with the park district right at that same site. And again, really kind of enhances not only the commuter pedestrian safety, but if you're like me, I've got kids and sending them downtown and crossings all over always gives me a little pause. If we've got a pedestrian tunnel that's wide enough to accommodate bikes and strollers and kids and commuters all at the same time, our downtown is just that much safer. So we're excited about this. We have also seen some real steep increases in costs. So now we're going back out trying to get some additional money to make this project a reality, but we're hopeful that we'll be successful given the importance it is to overall safety. And then some other projects of note, just in terms of capital projects next year. Mentioned the partnership with the Park District about the US Bank site. We're also hoping to partner with the Park District on Panfish Park. This is a park that's owned by the village. The golf course has maintained it for 50-60 years. We think with a partnership with the Park District, we can enhance the use of the park and tie it into the Park District is planning to upgrade their little playground Harding over there next year. So we're again really trying to strengthen our partnership with the Park District and put the assets and responsibility for the assets in the hands that are best able to kind of enhance them. I think that's all I really want to highlight. Moving along, governance, another one of our strategic initiatives. We've had a long-standing relationship with the Glen Ellyn Glen Ellyn Youth and Family Counseling Services. The village board provided some additional funding last year, given the mental health crisis that we're all facing throughout the country. We really were excited about the Milton Township 708 board coming on board. They're going to provide some additional funding to the Glen Ellyn Youth and Family Services. So we're excited about that, and I know that is one of President Senak's key initiatives.
Yes, look, mental health touches all of us everywhere. It is most acutely felt in this building. by our police officers. Interestingly, they encounter a number of people in doing their job who suffer from mental health issues. But we're also very sensitive that they, as police officers, need mental health services also. And so we talk about the police contract and some of those things. We want to make sure that they and their families know that we care about them, just like we care about all the residents of our village. We want to make sure that they're taken care of also. So mental health for us is not just a village issue. We try to partner with the school districts, with youth and family counseling, with the township, with the county, to try to get the funds available to us so that the people in our village who are trained and are willing to do this have the financial resources that they need to render the services that are needed by our residents. So I couldn't be more sincere in my desire to expand that as best we can. And I think that benefits us all.
Good summary. We've also partnered with the Chamber of Commerce to continue the tradition of using some of the carnival proceeds to support community grants for our non-for-profits. We've made that transition over the last couple of years. Exciting initiative, the McKee House up on St. Charles Road has been in decline for 20 years. We entered into a lease agreement with the Forest Preserve to take a facility, a fleet facility adjacent to the McKee House and utilize it for storage and salt storage in particular. We did that about 5 years ago. At the same time, we were given an opportunity to preserve the McKee House, try to find a partner that would want to invest in that facility. We didn't have a lot of luck early on, but the Midwest Soaring Foundation is a Native American organization that is interested in building a museum and event space there. And we're hoping that over the next 6 or 7 years, we can get a lot of support from through donations or grants to make that a reality and preserve a very historic building and at the same time provide a cultural center for Native Americans. And that land has been a home to the Potawatomi Indians for hundreds of years. So it really ties a lot of things together, and we're excited about this budding partnership. Public Arts Committee, President Senak mentioned the work that we've done with that group. I've got a couple slides to show that. We're supporting our Chamber of Commerce and Downtown Alliance to continue to bring events downtown, support the business community in a lot of different ways. So that is ongoing. And then maybe the biggest event planned for this year is something the MAC is hosting an Andy Warhol exhibit. We have a great relationship with College of DuPage, and we love when they do things like this because it just accentuates our town and our community and helps the business community out immensely. So from June to September, go check out the Andy Warhol exhibit. And here's just a couple pictures of a few, the Grove, the Taylor Street underpass, really turned out great. This artist from Mexico was up here freezing, putting this through. And he wants to do more and really was kind of inspirational in his desire to do this, and it really turned out great.
By the way, these are, if you want to rent these for birthday parties, you can just let us know. We'd be glad to have them delivered to wherever you would like to.
All the money goes to the food pantry.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So those are actually at the links at the moment. Reserve 22 probably displayed above the kind of the patio area. They've been in the police department for a while. You'll see them all over, but they're at the Civic Betterment Party town hall meeting. So really a great little public art display. Just last topic, I think, is the Glen Ellyn Fund that maybe some of you have heard about, but initiated in 2017. I think we're only one of 2 communities in DuPage County that has a kind of a village sponsored fund through the DuPage Foundation. Just a great opportunity to try to raise some funds to do kind of quality of life things that, you know, we don't have taxpayer dollars for every idea we have. So this local group of residents sit on an advisory committee and identify needs and partners and projects and donors. And they've had some starts and stops, but there is a $400,000 endowment created already. We've done a few small projects. I think I've got a picture of here, a couple projects that have been done through this initiative. But their next step is really to create another endowment that can tackle some of these other major projects, maybe the US Bank site, maybe the McKee House. And that group is going to be talking to probably all of you in different circles in the future. But want to just bring some awareness to that. these are the areas that they're focused on. I think that these are all great ideas and concepts, and certainly if there's some funds that could be used to kind of augment everything we're doing, we want to support it 100%. So look for the Glen Ellyn Fund to hopefully get a little bit more attention over the next few years. You want to say anything on that one, Martin?
Look, I think the point is, this was the idea of, I don't know if you know Mike Malone. But
That's right.
Mike Malone
Mike
brought
Malone.
this to us
He did.
and we thought it was a great idea.
Yeah.
It's basically.
He was on the
an-
environmental commission. at the
That's
time,
right.
so.
By the way, might add. In any event, it's just a great opportunity for people who are philanthropically minded to be able to contribute and then use those funds for really some fun things that might not otherwise be appropriate for taxpayer money. And the one that the growth was funded in part by a grant through the DuPage Foundation, the Glen Ellyn Fund. So if you are inclined to support that, I encourage you to do so because we have plenty of ideas, but not enough money.
We actually got a small grant from the endowment this year to try to mirror what they did up at Lake Ellyn and plant some additional trees in Panfish Park, and then put a QR code on a bunch of trees to try to educate the public on types of trees and different trees and things like that. So we're excited to bring that to Panfish Park later this year. And then lastly, just our communication slide that we like to share. There are a lot of different ways to keep up with what's going on in Glen Ellyn. We hope you do. Community surveys going out this year. We've got strategic plans that kind of track all the major things that we're trying to accomplish. A weekly e-newsletter. If you or your family, your friends don't get that, it's once a week. It is a nice little summary of everything going on. We're trying to be very active on social media. Our website continues to be enhanced. And then two things just I didn't touch on yet that I want to talk about is See-Click Fix. This is a new app that you can get on your phone, and when you're walking your dog at night and you see a traffic light or a street light out, or you see maybe a tree branch across the sidewalk, get on there, put that in. Oh, we should add flag just for Peter Cooper.
Flying above.
Twice a year, I get a text from Peter Cooper saying the flag needs to be replaced, and someone's got to do it. So I'm glad you do it, Peter. Thank you. But it's that kind of thing that we could ask you to help us with, because it takes a community to run a community. Send us a quick text, and you get an automatic response. And then when it's taken care of, you get a response that it was resolved. So look for See-Click Fix. And then the last one I'm forgetting is the emergency alerting system. So we are encouraging everyone to register your phone to this service, so that if we have a tornado or something in town, we can get information to you in real time. A lot of those landlines are going away, and it's harder to get in touch with everybody. So it will just take 2 minutes to get your cell phone on this system, and it's a great way to stay in touch for emergencies only. We do not send any nonsense out. It's emergencies only. I think that wraps it up.
Okay, I have the last one.
Okay, please.
I want to talk about one topic that's on everyone's mind, I think, guns, right? We hear a lot of this from both state and federal legislators. And the question is often asked of me, so what is the village doing about this? There's very little that the village can do, when it comes to legislation. So we are preempted by federal law and by state law from enacting a ban on handguns or automatic weapons or any kind of gun. People will say, well, how come Highland Park, right? It isn't. That's because the state law that regulates handguns provided a window of opportunity for municipalities who wanted to regulate it. And during that time, that was 15 years ago, we did not take any action. And so when that window closed, the village doesn't have the ability to do that. But that doesn't mean we can't do anything. And so what we've tried to do is find a way to work in the space that we have to promote safety in the village for the residents, and particularly the children in the schools. If you look at almost any study, you will find that school shooters and teen suicide is often perpetrated by handguns that the people find in their own home or in their relatives. And so what we have instituted is a program by which, if you have a handgun and you want to keep it safe and you want to lock it up, you can come to that window up front and ask, and they will give you a gun lock. You don't have to identify who you are. You don't have to say where you live. you'll be provided with a gun lock. If you don't like that gun and you want to go buy your own, we'll give you $100 towards that purchase. Because we want people who own guns, and it is their right to do that. We just want them to keep it safe. So that kids and people who want to do harm to themselves or others, it's a little more challenging when the gun's locked. So spread the word, and if you're inclined, stop in. I can tell you that as of today, nobody has asked for one. So again, pass the word. Q&A.
Any questions or?
Sure, just real quickly, I'm Bernie, the VP of Programs for the League of Women Voters of Glen Ellyn. And we're going to open it up for questions and just a request and a reminder on how to ask questions. If you're on Zoom, please type your questions into the.
That's why we're waving at you.
So
So the Q&A is not enabled for this, for some reason, so we can have people go to info@LWVGE.org and we'll monitor that website for any questions people have for watching.
Okay,
Just
so.
put manager Franz's cell phone.
All right, folks on Zoom, we're so sorry that the Q&A isn't working, so please go to, are we emailing? info@LWVGE.org.
And I believe Karen's gonna share her screen for a minute to try to share her screen to show that email address.
Oh,
So
thank
that
you,
they can
Karen.
look
Okay.
at it.
And for folks right here, you, of course, I'm sure folks here have questions, just raise your hand and these fellows will call on you. We don't have a secondary mic for folks to use, so you're gonna have to talk like me. Yeah, just speak up, raise your hands, wait to be called on, ask your questions. And I do want to thank you two for that fabulous presentation. And energetic Mark and Mark.
Yeah, well, we'll get it right another 2 years. We have to practice, so, by the end of it, I think that's done.
Questions we have about, well, we have until about 8:55. So go ahead.
See one here.
So I have a question about the TIF.
Okay.
It's your fault, you had a slide on TIF 101.
That's right.
And I could have this wrong,
Okay.
but my understanding is there have been occasions where an existing business moves from one spot to another spot on Main Street. Maybe a jewelry store from south of the tracks might have moved to a new location north of the tracks. And they got TIF money, or that's my understanding. And it doesn't seem to me that that follows the model of creating new revenue. I don't think it'll fit into your graph of increasing value. And could you speak to that? Did
Sure.
that actually happen?
I think that the one you're referring to happened before my time. The TIP wasn't established at the time, but we've got a program, facade program. For a long time, so
Of facade?
facade award program. So if you're gonna fix up your facade of your business, we gave some reimbursement. I don't remember what it was back at the time of the incident you're referring to. So it wasn't necessarily TIP related, but it's still a fair question. I think how I would look at it, but of course the board always votes on these facade. We've got a facade award for businesses. We've got a fire award. So if you're putting in fire alarms or sprinklers, there's award money available. There is I'm drawing a blank.
Exterior beautification.
There's a beautification one that we just approved as the board, and then there's an interior award. So there's 4 different awards now. Back when you're referring to that one, I think it was just a facade. And now we are funding a lot of those award programs with TIF dollars. So you're right on that. But what I think how we try to look at it is if you're moving your business and you're enhancing another building, then that's a benefit to the downtown community. Now, these awards are not huge dollars. It's up to $30,000,
But it doesn't
Sure.
create new revenue.
well, it does in a way because you're going into what was probably a vacant business. And then you're bringing a business into their old space. So now we do have a rule that you can't, you can only apply once every 3 years. And there are some limitations. There was one business that didn't last more than 3 years. So we tried to claw that money back unsuccessfully. So it's not a flawless program, but it is a way to encourage investment in these businesses. And some of these buildings downtown are really old. they need upgrades in electric and plumbing, and so it's a way to try to get, new businesses in and keep the downtown vibrant.
Yeah, look, the thing to remember about the TIF fund is that we pledge it, but we don't pay it until we receive it.
Good point, I should.
And so we're not using money, say, property tax money out of our residents. The money that we're pledging is the increase in the increment the manager Franz alludes to. So if that increment doesn't go up, we don't have to pay it. But if the increment does go up, we pay a portion of it back to the developer who develops the property. The other important thing to remember about it is some people claim the TIF district disadvantages the schools. And there's a variety of papers that have been written by our D41 president, Bob Bruno, on this topic.
Yes, sure.
But the other part about this to remember, and I think if the slide comes up, you'll see, is that the TIF district or the TIF Act ends. And when it ends, then all of that money goes into the schools and back to the village. So at some stage, our belief is that the overall net is positive for all the governmental entities, from school districts, the park districts to the village.
Actually, 2
I'm really confused, don't I?
Two.
I guess the question is, it doesn't go to the schools for 23 years?
Correct.
So 23 years, the schools aren't getting any of it.
No, not any. They are still getting the base that it was
Right.
established.
Oh, they're not getting
Yes.
increased.
They're not getting
The schools also
Uh-huh.
are, they're setting levy. So they're getting whatever money they need. They're just not getting it from that district until the TIF expires.
Okay.
And then remember, just to add to President Senek's point, at the end of the TIF, it goes back to the taxing bodies at the percentage that they're taxed. So we get 7% of that back. The schools are getting 76% of that money back. So they are made whole once the TIF expires.
Mark, can I do that? You explained to me a number of years ago in a way that it was useful to me.
Okay.
Let me see if I can share it back.
Okay,
If you have,
I was smarter than Peter.
if you have a property that's worth $100,000 before TIF,
Yes.
and we now TIFed it. And we've now built a property that's worth $1 million, the taxation will be on the $1 million. However, that's the difference is we always had the value of the $100,000. The village continues to get that. The increment between the million and the 100 is what goes into the TIF fund, and some portion of that difference goes in there. So for example, if now the building's worth $1 million, being taxed as $1 million, maybe 40% or 50% of that will be used as TIF dollars. So that's where the incremental value. It's not that it's taken off the rolls, it's the additional value that is being added into it isn't ending up in the coffers.
Right.
So we're giving up some of the future dollars that we would have gotten, and after 23 years, we get all.
And the
Go ahead.
village, what's telling me is the village is making this decision, who's only impacted by get 7%, but the schools don't have a say for when
They-
it's impacted.
They do have a say. I'm sorry, I should have pointed that out. We have what's called the Joint Review Board. So all the taxing bodies have a seat at that board and get updates every year. And we wanted to make sure that, there's some feedback provided, of course, and it's state law. We want to follow state law. But, well, yeah, and I've had a few conversations with him as well, but the big measuring stick is no TIF dollars can go out unless they pass what's called a but-for clause. So they need to prove that they need the money to make the development work. If that happens, what you can make an argument about is it wouldn't happen at all unless there was TIF dollars. So we could wait and not create a TIF and then maybe never see that increment. So we're taking the proactive stance of let's create the TIF, let's make the investment, but then let's share it at the end of the TIF. That makes sense. Yes, sir.
How's the lead pipe project?
We are doing an update at the February workshop on lead pipe. So we've done our own kind of assessment. We're going to share some of that with the village board, identify a few ways to address it over the next few years. We are fortunate that we don't have the vast majority of our pipes are lead, but there's still some, and we want to figure out a way to address it. We're going to get some feedback from the board on how to approach that.
Thank you.
So this is the classic, you may have heard, unfunded mandate, right? Springfield
Right.
is telling the municipalities, you have to fix this problem, but they're not providing any revenue to do that.
The water issue's been in the news. I understand everything south of Miltonville Road is copper, which is great, but it's primarily the downtown.
At the older part of the village. Yeah,
Thank you.
but every time we do the streets, we replace the service that goes from the property up to, or from the street up to the edge of the property. And we just can't do anything else. And we're talking about trying to provide, you heard about the facade award and whatnot. We're talking about whether we should do that for lead pipes. So that the village will share the cost with the homeowner on replacing any of the lead pipes in the area, but we're doing the survey to really find out where we're at.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Does the Glen Ellyn police, are they having any issues hiring and filling the open positions? That they
Yes.
Yes.
have? They said, what's the,
Yeah, that's been a problem for police departments all over the country. And we're hopeful that, you know, I guess the changing economy is gonna shift things a little bit too. But that's one of the reasons why we're excited about getting an updated contract with the police officers so we can promote the new starting salaries. We're doing a few things proactively to try to bring police officers on at a higher starting pay. That's part of the contract, so we're trying to be proactive. We had a test 6 months ago or so. I think we had about 45 applicants. There's some towns that are having tests and they're getting 10. We used to have 125 show up for a test, so it's just a whole different dynamic, and we're trying to address it a couple of different ways.
Yeah, and I don't want to like sound like we're special, but I can tell you, Chief Norton spends a lot of time picking the police officers who work in Glen Ellyn. And the results speak for themselves. I mean, our officers are amazing. And, you know, I've often said we should promote it more in terms of how they handle themselves and how they respond to situations. But that's a product of leadership, training, and selection. So we spend a little bit more time on selection than maybe some of the others do. But, you know, we reap that benefit for 10, 15, 20, 25 years.
And tying back to the volunteers, and we've got a 3-person board of Fire Police Commission board that does it's been doing a lot of integrating the last couple of years. So they've been instrumental in keeping up with the hiring.
So most of the suburbs are getting the police from Chicago.
We do have a lateral program. That's another thing we've done.
Yeah,
that's what I've heard is that
that's
St.
what I-
Lucia's to other villages and I heard the sheriff is losing people. To
Yeah. You know, nobody wants to do that job anymore.
Arnie, you love this question.
Yeah, we have
Oh, okay.
I have a question from, so the info at LWVGE does work. I've
Great.
gotten several questions in. One is, would you please explain in more detail the timeline you have for responding to the bids for the Roosevelt Road site? What would you like it to be, and realistically, what would you expect it to be?
I can start and
You
you
go.
jump in. So we are going through a process with our broker and our consultant of evaluating the proposals. And then once we get it kind of narrowed down, then we're gonna have to go through a process of trying to negotiate an actual purchase and sale agreement. So that takes some time. We're asking the community to be patient with us because we want to make sure we're you know, looking through that process as best we can. But we certainly will try to get the dates out there when a decision can be made as soon as possible. But we're still a few months away.
So, in all due respect to our newly elected trustee, that decision will be made by this board before the change.
Not quite elected yet, but.
No, yeah, sorry.
Candidate.
Candidate, unopposed candidate.
We are.
Can we edit that? No.
That's my last one.
We have a few others
Sure, go
here.
ahead.
Please briefly explain the process of getting a zoning change in the village. How long does that usually take, and how difficult is it to make a change in zoning?
That is a little bit of a complicated question. There's a number of different types of zoning changes, so it depends kind of on which one they're referring to. But we have a zoning board, we have a plan commission. Again, the changes, if it's a residential, and it usually goes to the zoning board. If it's a commercial, I'm simplifying this, it goes to the plan commission. And if you're talking about a text amendment, that's much more complicated and takes a little bit longer. So it really kind of depends on the nature of the change.
Yeah, or what I don't understand is there's changing the zoning code or the things that Manager Franz points out, or getting a variance. So if you're building something, you want to get a variance, it's a little bit of a different process than what he's alluding to. And all I can tell you is we're trying to improve that. And one of the slides here was the idea that we're going to automate community development. So you can make that submission electronically, you can track your application electronically. And we're hopeful that that's going to shorten the amount of time for that, for people who want to get variances or who need some kind of zoning issue.
we're hoping to hire a consultant to move that project forward next month. Yes, sir.
My wife and I moved into Glen Ellyn about 40 years ago, and we were attracted by the charm of the downtown. It almost looks like New England, some small New England town. I've got a feeling that a lot of people here were attracted to Glen Ellyn for the same reason. We live in a home that's about 100 years old. It's been flagged by the Historical Society.
Congratulations.
Thanks. We've done an awful lot of work to maintain this home, as you can imagine. We even had our lead pipes already taken care of. There was a lot of expense to basement issues that we had, but we feel a lot of pride in the community, our street, our neighborhood, and we love the downtown, and we'd really like to see it stay the way that it is, particularly Main Street. I was not happy about Apex 400. Most of my friends are not happy about it either. And we don't want to see it happen again. And I have no idea how people feel in this room about it. I've watched Downers Grove, where I taught for 35 years. We've taken a look at Elmhurst. And when they put these high-rise, huge, colossal buildings, developments in, it seems like they put them a street back. They're not right on Main Street, taking away a lot of the charm. I'm worried about the firehouse. I've heard stories, I've seen drawings that there's a chance that Pennsylvania, that may be ripped down and a 6-story building put there that would run the gamut of Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm also worried about landlords maintaining their properties. Are they allowed to let them go? And compromise the health and the safety of renters in some of the 2-story buildings. I'm seeing some of the paint deteriorate on some of the buildings, particularly on the south part of Main Street. Just enough that it concerns me that some of these buildings may get condemned. Landlords sell the developers, and then we get another Apex across the street. I just can't imagine what Glen Ellyn would look like. So I guess I'm looking at a response from you. What are your thoughts about Apex? Are you pleased with it, Mark, Senak? And
I wonder.
yeah, I'd love to hear your.
You guys go back and watch the board meeting a few years ago.
And I'd really like to know, what can the village do to try to encourage landlords to maintain their buildings? And one example would be the Glen Theater. We all love the Glen Theater, but I'm worried about it. I taught in Downers Grove, the Tivoli is doing great. They still have a bowling alley. Our students down south and north actually utilize it. The Glen has got the old bowling alley. That could be resurrected, for example. I don't know if there'll be friends of the Glen to try to preserve it. The Glen is even on those letters that you were speaking about. Oh. Well, can we put tip one? Can we get like the Glen Theater? You talk to the owners to encourage to try to preserve.
I'm here, Apex property and bowling
Look,
Apex.
Anybody who is sort of familiar with my tenure understands I was not a fan of Apex. Now, that having been said, that was a decision made by that board. I honor that vote. My challenge now is to make it the best that it can be. Build a retail space, do what's necessary to make it viable, right? On historic character of the downtown, I could not be more in favor of. We reinstituted the Architectural Appearance Commission, which was dissolved by my predecessors, for the express purpose of what you described, which is to have residents in charge of deciding what type of development from an exterior, design element is going to be in the downtown. On the issue of landlords, as Manager Franz alluded, we have a variety of different programs that we try to use to incentivize landlords to keep up and modernize their property, with the idea that we would like them to do that so that it becomes rentable. And we continue to draw businesses into the existing rather than tearing down and rebuilding. Bowling, I'm terrible at, so I don't want to tell you, except, I'd love to get better. Yes, I'll tell you an interesting story about Glen Peter. Some of you may have heard this. So my wife and I grew up about 5 blocks away, and I've known her since I was 6 years old. So we lived in an area of Gary, Indiana, called Glen Park. And like 4 blocks from both of us was a theater called the Glen. So when she and I were driving around the suburbs, she was expecting son number 1. We came around the corner and we saw the Glen. And we thought, say no more. And that was 28 years ago. So the Glen has a special place in my heart.
Maybe he's the first donor.
All the bowling balls.
Well, do you know if when I go there, it's empty, the seats are
Terrible.
awful. You can't
Stick to the floor.
Look, we try, our dilemma is we can't force them to do it. We could provide incentives for them to do it. We can encourage them to do it. But, Manager Franz doesn't want to get in the movie business, so we're not going to buy it and read it.
No.
But we're going to continue to try and engage and encourage and, provide some mechanism.
Oh, yeah, we speak to them all the time. And there's a business owner and then there's the property owner. The property owner owns that almost entire block. So sometimes it is, as you speak, it's hard to get landlords motivated. But we do have property maintenance standards. So there's a couple different ways to go about it. So we'll continue to try to encourage that investment.
But maintaining the historic charm and character of this village is high on my priority list. And you're not going to see, at least during my tenure, another advice. Right here.
Just a small question. So I'm thrilled about the train station and the plans for the construction starting in 2025. Is there any plans to fix or repair the stairs that are crumbling? So since it's a life safety hazard?
Yes, that is UP's responsibility. We have brought that to their attention a number of times, and it's also something we're trying to utilize as a little bit of leverage to say we would be responsible for maintaining the station moving forward. UP should contribute to that because that's a burden that they're bearing now or should be bearing. So it's a negotiating point. We've done some minor repairs because we just need to. But we really need to get their attention, and we're gonna try again here in the spring to do just that.
Especially when the snow was on.
I know.
Couldn't tell where half
So,
the snow was gone.
so understand the train station. I don't know where to go. UP is less than cooperative.
They're an absentee landlord themselves.
And, they want to sell the train station and they would like us to buy it for $3 million. We're not going to spend $3 million on that train station. Now, they claim they have somebody who wants to buy it. Of course, that business is located in Omaha, Nebraska, right by UP. Now, I don't know, maybe there's some relationship, maybe not. But trying to deal with them has been extraordinarily frustrating. But we're going to keep trying, is all I can say. Hold on, we'll go with some of the.
So I think you'll like this one.
Oh, I see.
So how will the village work with the county with regard to the East Branch DuPage River Trail, particularly now that the county has received additional infrastructure dollars, 1.5 million for continuing engineering studies?
So I would like nothing more than to complete that project. I think it'd be a great economic asset for the village. We talk about there's different ways to create economic development. Some of it is to create buildings and whatnot, increase density in the downtown. The other way is to get people to come to Glen Ellyn, spend their money and leave. And, getting some traffic in and the East Branch DuPage River Trail would help with that. There's two parts of that. There's the part that runs from the Prairie Path up to the Great Western Trail. That's not part of the grant, as I understand it. The grant money goes from the Prairie Path south to Morton Arboretum. So I've been trying to get my forest preserve friends and the county to just complete the first part of it, which is Great Western to the Prairie Path. The dilemma there is you got to go under the railroad tracks. And there is a tunnel there now, but it's not really suitable for that. And so the county is now in phase 2,
No, it's just phase 1.
phase 1 engineering for that to be done.
That stretch, yes.
But let's go back to the railroad. They're great to deal with, right? Trying to drill under their railroad, they're very protective. And they're not really keen on having that happen. Oddly enough, that's why the ability to do that at the pedestrian tunnel in Taylor Street was such an amazing accomplishment. So we're going to continue that effort. And, I'd like to get the first part done. And the county is committed to doing it. I heard that 2 years ago. I haven't seen one thing happen since then.
And so what will the village do?
We will continue to participate, meaning that if I can get the Forest Reserve to fund it, I consider going to the board and asking for some funding so that we could at least do the first part. Should be relatively modest in cost. Much of the trail in the Forest Reserve in Churchill Woods is already there. We would just have to connect really from, what is that, St. Charles Road to the Prairie Path, and then we have to get underneath the railroad tracks. And that is going to have to come from the county. Come on. You wore the hat, so I wouldn't recognize you, right? Oh, that's okay.
But we'll talk about that another time. I'm glad he brought up the Glen, because in the bowling underneath, just quick question is, would you guys consider any tip money to help
We have.
to get that bowling alley?
We've had 2 developers look at it and couldn't make it work, even with TIF dollars. So there's no ADA accessibility. It's in the basement. It's really gonna be a challenge, but we're
Well,
gonna
I know
keep
it's gonna
trying.
be a lot of money,
Yeah.
because it's,
Did you guys hear the question? Yeah.
Is there bowling alleys under the?
There is remnants of a bowling alley under the theater. And then there are years.
and then they actually,
Yeah, the fans are still there, but all the equipment is piled up.
So would we consider TIF money? Absolutely, absolutely.
okay.
Bring us some.
Yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Okay.
Okay. Joyce, good, nice.
It's not housing.
Oh, sorry, come on.
Anyway, Mark, you talked about priorities by way of the environment, doing some things with trees, or planting of trees and things. But one of the things that a lot of studies have shown is idling cars really create a lot of pollution. And with the trains and the increased amount of trains that we have going through, there's, a lot of cars idle in our downtown. I mean, some communities have worked on trying to get cars not to idle, stop, even if you stop and then just start up right away, it's supposedly less dangerous than if you just keep on going.
Yeah.
So,
We haven't looked at that. We do have an idling policy for our vehicles. So other than public safety vehicles, we're not supposed to be idling any of our village vehicles. But I haven't seen a policy on trying to encourage that within the community. That's something we can
I
certainly.
mean, an educational, at
Yeah.
least,
Right.
plans.
I overput my car.
All right.
Go ahead.
Who would we contact to try to make that happen? I live across the street from First Presbyterian Westminster
Yep.
School. And cars idle close to 30 minutes multiple times a day.
No problem. You call Mark Frank.
Well,
And his cell phone will be up on the screen. No,
Amy, what kind of cars are you talking about? High school kids or something?
no, the Westminster.
Big ass
They have
meetings.
For 15 to 20 minutes before each time they start and get out.
Okay.
School.
Every school. That's right. That's friends.
And giving them a no idling sign and they shaking it down.
Really? Okay, let's talk about that.
back in the yellow, or kind of a lime green, kind of a.
So, how confidential that I'm here. I am the director of Westminster Preschool. Thank you for your time. And I have encouraged my parents to turn off their cars. Some do. Unfortunately, we also have some that are caregivers, and I have communication to the parent, perhaps was not relayed to a possibly limited English speaking and or college age substitute person caregiver. And we have your sign. What happened was when we had to put a new stop sign on the building and we put in a paver path for safety. We did not have a sidewalk where parents were walking, and how that was ever designed is beyond me. So we put in a paver path to make more safety. Then the paver path people took out the sign, which has not been replaced yet, much to my disappointment and encouragement of our property committee. And I'll just be blunt, you know, Presbyterians, it goes to committee.
Sounds like the village.
So thank you for asking, and I agree with you, the idling is an enormous problem. I will once again address it with our parents. But my other question
Yes.
was, the property that houses the printer A Reliable, next to the Fannie Mae, it's a little bitty,
Yeah.
used to have a training program.
Yes.
You know. I support them for my printing needs, and they are just disappointed, not only in the parking lot and the property. They have said they've tried to buy it, and it's some sort of family situation. And they're worried, of course, that something's gonna happen, they're gonna be kicked out. And I don't know about you, but I personally like having a printer in town. And again, I'm not saying you can solve this, but you don't know the landlord versus property, but I just feel disappointed that that is another part of Roosevelt Road that could flourish.
Yes, indeed. That is one of our catalyst sites in our comprehensive plan. We had a meeting with the broker last week on that property. That property just sold earlier this year. So we will be reaching out and seeing what we can do to help facilitate some positive results there.
And maybe keep the business.
Or find a place to relocate them if that's necessary, but we try to do that all the time. So thanks for that, thanks for the heads up. And I have a question for you maybe after the meeting.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Okay.
I listened to Sean Caston podcast. About money spent in the Glen Ellyn towards the YMCA Willowbrook Center. Do you have any plans to seek federal funding for any of the projects in Glen Ellyn? Now, we talked a little bit about the train station.
Yes,
And certainly that is an ongoing process,
yes.
but any others?
Yeah, so we try to send a letter to all of our legislators at the beginning of the year to identify projects and needs. So we've off the top of my head, we asked for funding and support for the train station, for the McKee House, for the US Bank site, for the East Branch River Trail.
Crescent Avenue, is that?
Well, and that one's already in line. We're gonna get $600,000 for Crescent Avenue. And then just on a broader scale, transportation dollars flow through DuPage Mayors and Managers Council. So it's a cog of government that manages all DuPage County funding. We sit on that group and compete for funding with our municipal partners. So we try to attract and get outside funding all the time.
On this particular point, the one thing I'll add is, we are talking about whether we should add a grant writer to the village staff for the purpose of doing just this, which is trying to access grants. And that's just an interesting discussion as to how you do that. Is it sort of on commission basis, or how we might accomplish that? But we would sincerely like to get somebody on who has that particular expertise. Otherwise, it falls on each department within the village to do their own grant applications. And that's just very challenging for them to do that. And many of them don't understand the nuances of that grant writing prospect. So we're looking for other ways to increase revenue without raising property tax. And that's one method we're talking about. Yeah, thank you.
Speak about new businesses moving in, like where Rue used to be, the restaurant Rue, I can see there's construction going on, but I don't know.
Oh, yes.
You got it.
Yes, I'm drawing a blank on
The
the
name?
name. It is 450-450. Yes, there's a new breakfast and lunch place moving in there. There's a sign on the window I noticed today. So I'm hoping that's pretty soon. That's where Santa Fe used to be. Santa Fe owns that company.
Great.
We did give them.
Yeah, as an example of like the awards program you run at the village, the exterior facade, interior awards, they came and applied, and the village provided some incentives for them to rehabilitate the building.
And that's probably a perfect example of money well spent. Yeah, building went through a fire, obviously, and was devastated with the fire, and we're helping.
And it's rehabbing some of the older properties so that they don't get torn down. So, we our challenge really is, we don't own the property, we can't sort of force them to either lower the rent so they get a tenant or improve the property without increasing the rent because of the cost. Let's go over there.
Yeah.
Are
there-
Yeah, I know it used to be a bar, restaurant.
The case.
Oh, yeah, that used to be Tap House.
Right.
That is a business called Bricks and Mortar. It's a co-working space. And they've been renovating it for about a year. They have some work to do with the facade. But that project has been approved and is moving forward. The one Katie's Dress Shop.
Yeah.
There's a restaurant moving in there. They finally got their submitted for a permit. So that's moving forward. And the corner of Apex is Za Baby. It's a pizza restaurant and bar. And that's they're in cover as well.
So if your printer wants to move downtown, you let us know and we'll find you some space. We'll go back in.
Yeah, I just wanted to pay a compliment to the underpass, the Grove, is what you're calling it. I take my guests who come to Glen Ellyn there. I'm so proud of Glen Ellyn for having public art like that. So thank you.
I have a big, thank you. The great part about that is no single, everybody agrees. COD, the village, the artist, the Glen Ellyn Fund or the DuPage Fund. And I just think it's great. It's one of my favorite parts. The public art is a little bit of a passion for me. So you've seen the murals in the pedestrian walkthrough, the Grove, the letters, and we got some other ideas coming too.
President Senak is being modest. That's something he's been pushing for a long time. He deserves a lot of credit for that one.
We have another one from online. So they first thank the league for hosting this. The question is, it's a housing one. Regarding the comprehensive housing review, how is the village using the consulting study by the current hired consultant, Con Savoy? Is Full Circle Communities as an expert in senior and affordable supportive housing being engaged as part of the comprehensive study? And will the village board be taking action on the Roosevelt Road hotel property, or will that building remain empty while this study is being completed over the next year?
So let's see. Yes, no, yes. No. The material that we generated from many of the meetings that were held here for the Roosevelt Road site, all of that is going to be now forwarded to that committee. So we're going to try to get some mileage out of that. And that's both the public comment as well as the written submissions that were made through the village website.
Yeah.
So the committee will have access to all that information. What was the?
I guess the circle communities that as part of that.
That's no.
And then will the village, they won't be
They
specific.
will not be part of that process, at
Okay.
least at the evaluation stage.
Okay.
Where it goes after that in terms of developers, maybe.
And will the village board be taking action on the hotel property, or will the building remain empty and vacant while the process is happening over the next year?
As I said, we're gonna deal with that in the next few months. Yeah.
So they're two totally different things. We've been trying
Yeah.
to say that throughout the process.
Mhm.
The housing study is village wide. The hotel is just one site. Trying to get.
But we are gonna use the data from what we did here with the community. I mean, there's an enormous amount of data available.
There's a different person who builds on that. We believe there's a need for additional workforce support of senior and affordable housing beyond what is required and what currently exists. Even though the village currently exceeds state minimum requirements, how do you see this type of housing fitting in with the village's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Look, that type of housing is part of the commitment of the village to diversity, equality, and inclusiveness. We have some great proposals for that property, in my estimation. Meaning that we have groups that want to buy all of it. We have groups that want to buy some of it, the east side, the west side. I can tell you here and now, I think we can kind of have it both ways. We can have commercial development there on one side, we can have residential affordable on the other. I'd like to see, the board get to that point. But again, keep in mind, I don't vote unless there's a tie. So it's up to the trustees as to what they want to do.
I think we might have time for one more question. Anybody have a final question?
Oh, man.
I know it's been so much.
Questions?
This is regarding building in, the village, commercial and residential. I just finished a huge project at our house. We had a lot of different, inspectors. I'm wondering, what is your plan for
our building department, are we gonna bring it back in-house? All the inspectors, because quite frankly, you know, if we're getting rid of people in our village, in our building department, and then rehiring them as, what do you call them, consultant contractors? Okay, we're not paying their medical benefits, but we're paying higher, and some of these people, they don't know Glen Ellyn, and we're really tired of it. It's not just me,
Yeah, let me,
obviously.
yeah, let me address that directly. We went through a massive transition in that department. We had, we were down a building inspector, a zoning official, a planner, a community development director, engineer. We have filled all those positions as of now.
So they're all filled now.
They're all, yes, they're all filled out. Some of them are brand new, so it's gonna take a little bit of training, but we should be at full strength going into the construction season.
So, but
Although
my
construction
question,
season.
are any of these consultants that don't
we-
work for the village?
We will still be augmenting with some. We don't have a plumber. It's hard to find a plumber. We'll be trying to do that. Do that. We are looking to have a little more consistency.
So you're saying for like just the plumbers in general are not on our payroll here?
Correct. That many communities don't have a plumber.
Okay, that's fine. How about like, you know, they come in and they look at the structure itself. Are those our employees now?
We've got 2.5 inspectors now, more than we've had before. So, and we also have our contractors reporting to our lead inspector. So I think you'll see a change in approach.
So let me just add a little bit to that.
I hope we all do,
That,
because
community development, has been a focus of mine since I started. And the issue that we had at the beginning was, were we gonna reorganize the department and then hire someone to run it? Or are we gonna hire someone to run it and then reorganize the department? You know, we talked about it, we concluded it's better to hire someone, reorganize the department. And so Marty Scott is the new director down there. If you have not had a chance to talk to him and you have an issue, I encourage you to go do that. I think he is one of the best, you know, new hires that we have. And we are now kind of taking a hard look at that department in terms of bringing in people in-house to fully staff it. And you heard a little bit about the effort to automate it, to create some technology down there that will increase the efficiency and workflow through the
it's
department.
crazy.
So that is on the radar, that is under discussion. It just takes a little time to move the pieces around.
Scott, you said Marty Scott,
Marty Scott
did he take over for Whit?
took over for Stacy Springer.
Oh, Stacy, okay. Who took over for Whit?
Hasn't started yet. Hired, but we'll be starting in a week or two.
Okay.
Oh, well, that's the son.
Oh. Oh. All right, just a few things before you all leave. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight on Zoom, as well as coming out here. Thank you for all your great questions. And a special thanks to Mark Senak, Village President, and Mark Franz, our Village Manager, for their great presentation and answering all of our questions. I know I learned a lot. I think we all did. I do have a few announcements. Okay. The League of Women Voters of Glen Ellyn invites you all to join us for our February upcoming events. We have 2 events in February. February 9th, a consortium of local leagues and Cantigny Park are hosting a civic awareness series program featuring Jim Slusher, the Daily Herald's editorial manager. And he's going to discuss the paper's recent editorial series on the need for election reform. And that's going to be a Zoom only event. On February 23rd, the Glen Ellyn League here is hosting a program on privacy and reproductive rights in a post-Roe era. And that's going to take place right here at the police department. So be sure to check out our website, LWVGE.org, for further information on both of these programs, as well as information on any upcoming programs that we'll plan for March and April. And quickly, speaking of April, there is a consolidated election on April 4th. Yeah, so there's an election on April 4th, and we want you all to get ready to vote. The election is for local school board members, as well as other elected local positions. And the Glen Ellyn League chaired the voter services, chairs Dave Evans and Erica Nelson are hosting a voter expo to help you prepare. And it's March 4th, that's March 4th, and you can check our website for more information on that event. Let's see. So yeah, please check out our event, lwvge.org, for information on all these events, as well as if you're interested in joining us in our mission to empower voters and defend democracy, you can find more information about joining on our website. So once again, thank you all for attending our 2023 State of the Village program. We wish you all a good night. Thank you all.
Not yet.